Hi there, I'm Coach Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about stages of grieving a breakup. Well, a breakup is very confusing and it's very complicated and it's so different for so many people. And I think a big, huge component of that is our own attachment issues and the areas we've struggled in our own life and maybe attachment traumas that we've had. And so that's why you'll see that many people struggle in different ways than you are. Now, of course, there are going to be similarities, but it may take you a lot longer to grieve a breakup or get over it than somebody else. And it's interesting because some people, you get over that person right away. And some people, you're struggling with it for a long time.
Mm-hmm. And it also depends on the reasons for the breakup. There are certain reasons where maybe it's a little bit elusive or not clear, and it can keep you wondering for a long time, something that you ruminate on. And other times, the breakup is crystal clear, and there's a clear understanding of why it ended.
Yeah. So breakups are so different. That's why we say it all the time. Every relationship is different, and every breakup is different, because it really is. But when we lose somebody that we care about, when a relationship ends, the struggle that you go through is just overwhelming sometimes, and the grief process. And we've talked a lot about this on the channel with grief and grieving, and particularly when we had Coach Margaret, because she understood it so well. Oh, yeah. So we've got a lot of old videos that you could search on grief and grieving. So in this video, we're going to talk about the process and the stages of grief, because you may be feeling like, I don't understand why it's so hard to move on from this situation or let go or whatever it is that you're going through. But it takes work. You have to actively participate in healing, in working through it. Talking about it in therapy helps a lot. I was going to Margaret twice a week when I was going through the Applebee's breakup, and I was harassing you and all my other friends too. And, you know, I was lucky enough to have Margaret, and she would sit with me for hours at a time sometimes. Literally, if she didn't have somebody after our session, she would just let me keep going until she had somebody else come in, depending upon what her schedule was like. But I had to process it and go through that. And so I understand what it's like to struggle with that, but you really got to actively participate in it. And I think the creative healing course would help a lot with that too.
And I think as a society too, we're getting better at recognizing that breakups are grief. It's a different type of grief. You're grieving somebody who's still very much alive and just choosing to not be a part of your life at this moment, which is very different from somebody who did die, when there is somebody that's not here anymore and it's final and it's concrete, versus somebody who's still out there with feelings and having these lingering feelings yourself.
Yeah, it hurts differently because you know if somebody's passed away that it's not that they're actively choosing not to be in your life or talk to you, that it's, you know, out of your control and their control.
So today we're going to be talking about the stages of grief, and many of you might already be familiar with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief. She's the person who has developed those 5 stages of grief that we've mentioned before on our channel. There are other theories that have different amount of stages and different types of stages, but this one is very concise, easy to remember, and makes sense.
Okay.
So the first stage is denial. And this is one that we see a lot during a breakup conversation. You might be saying things to yourself or to your ex that sound like, we're not broken up, we're just going through a phase, or this is a rough patch. This is basically you not accepting the reality that is happening. So it can also be, you don't mean it, saying that to your ex, that you're not serious about this breakup, or we're just on a break. Or it might even be, we're working on things. Yeah. You know, your ex has said, no, we're done. And you're thinking in your head, we're going to get back together in a week. They don't really mean it. They don't really want to break up. And what this does is that you're telling your ex that their decision isn't valid when you're doing this. And sometimes it happens just impulsively. You know, our gut instinct is to say, no, I reject this reality. I reject this decision. I don't want to see it for what it is. But when we do that, we are affecting our partner.
Yeah. To be in denial is like reality is just too painful.
Mm-hmm.
And you see it in a lot of different places in life, not just with breakups. But when you see somebody in that place of, I can't sit with this thing, it's too painful for me. Your brain has to kind of distort things to fit your liking at that time. And, it's very difficult to watch somebody go through that. I could give you an example. When my mom had terminal cancer and she was really close to passing away, the doctor, we were in with the radiologist, and he's basically saying, like, you might have like another couple of weeks or something like that. And she's saying to me, I just hope that I can see my son, Lucas, make it to like kindergarten. And I'm thinking, kindergarten, you're not even going to make it. I didn't say this, but I was thinking, kindergarten, you're not even going to make it to Christmas. And she didn't. And she was just in denial about how bad this situation was. And so it was very hard to see her go through that. And actually, I saw my dad. He had gotten cancer several times, and he beat it several times. But what happened is he started to have all kinds of other health issues because of all the treatments he had done over the years. It took a toll on his body. He had radiation, caused his teeth to fall out towards the end. We were going to get his teeth replaced. He had all kinds of issues come up. And his physical health had deteriorated so badly that he struggled to even like get dressed and put on a sweater and stuff like that. And yet he would be talking about, when we move, I want to start this thing with the business, and I want to get back into teaching, and I want to do this. And we're thinking, everybody in the family is like thinking, there's no way he's going to be able to do any of these things. It's just not going to happen. But, we didn't take that away from him. We didn't, because it was too painful for him. We knew he wasn't gonna live much longer. We all could sense it. But we didn't want to take that away by saying, you're never going to go back to work. You're never going to do that thing with the business, because it's just too difficult. So when you see somebody in denial like that, it's really hard when you're watching somebody that you love go through that.
Oh, yeah. And it's our brain's way of protecting ourselves.
Yeah.
Margaret used to always say that our bodies and our minds know how much that we can handle. And so sometimes denial is that protective mechanism of, I know that I can't handle this right now.
Yeah.
And it buys us some time to get to a stronger place until we're able to accept it. So it's a tough place to be in, and sometimes we can't control it because we're out of touch with reality. We can't accept the reality. Then it's hard to act differently.
Yeah.
So this is one of those stages, and it's the first stage in the process. So this is one of the first things that you might experience, and by the time you watch this video, you might have already realized, okay, I have been in denial about certain things about the breakup. Next, we have anger, which is very downplayed, in my opinion, in the grief process. I think as a group of people, we really struggle with certain emotions, and anger is one of those that's hard to accept when we're grieving somebody and when we've lost them.
Yes. I personally had a hard time getting angry with my breakups, and Margaret kept trying to get me angry. She kept pushing me to get angry, but I couldn't. I was too sad, and I kept telling her, I'm too sad to be angry. I'm too sad. And she kept trying and trying, and eventually we wound up getting there, but it took me a long time.
Yeah. And sometimes these stages will not necessarily happen in chronological order. So you might find yourself being angry first, or maybe angry after you've passed through other stages. So it's not always linear. Just remember that as we're talking about it.
Yeah, and you'll go back and forth. So you go to one stage and you might go back to another, and you'll kind of revert back and forth. So don't think it's like a straight line and get through it. It's not like that.
Yeah, and anger is very useful, despite what a lot of people think. It's another self-protective mechanism. It's something that lets our bodies know that we're being mistreated, or that we're in danger, or that there's something wrong. and it's trying to tell you something. So being mad at your ex is not always a bad thing. Now, there is a difference between self-righteous anger and then more of a righteous anger. Self-righteous anger might be if you were the one to make a lot of mistakes and you're thinking, how dare they break up with me? Or they don't have a right to break up with me.
Yep.
You know, sometimes we can get very possessive during a breakup, thinking that we're entitled to our ex's attention and affection. And so this anger can come up in a very self-righteous way. You know, we deserve to be together. Or you might start to think negative things about your ex. I know that other channels, other coaches will suggest, you know, trash talking your ex or thinking negative things about them, which sure, it might help you to get past some things, but in the grand scheme of things, are we really going to be putting somebody down in order to make ourselves feel better? No. There's a more righteous anger during a breakup too, of I'm hurt by this separation and that makes me angry. Or even after everything that we've been through together, I'm really upset and angry that they broke up with me over text, or that they didn't want to have a full-on conversation about things.
Yep.
And you can even be angry at their decision, you know? You don't have to like the fact that they chose to break up with you. You know, you can say, I'm mad that they made this decision to end the relationship.
I'm mad that they didn't try harder to fix this. Sure.
Yeah. So that's more of a righteous anger coming from a healthier place to say, okay, I recognize that they do have a right to end the relationship, but this is how it makes me feel, and I acknowledge that too.
Yep. Anger is often misconstrued, I think, by a lot of people. And I think there are a lot of people out there that say, oh, don't be angry. Don't spend your life being angry. No, don't spend your life being angry, but you have a right to be angry at certain things. And I've seen people over the years that were mistreated by their parents, maybe abused, whatever, and they hadn't even gotten to the place where they were angry at them yet. And I'm like, no, you have every right in the world to be angry at what they did. And when they get to that place, they're like, you're right. And they kind of feel free afterwards, that they're like, yes, I shouldn't be so eager to help them or kind to them when they've been mistreating me all these years. So anger can be a good thing, and it can help you separate. It can help you separate from parents when you're trying to individuate. It can help you separate from your ex when you feel like you're being mistreated, and you know, you're able to look at a situation with more perspective. So anger isn't necessarily a bad thing. Okay? So don't be afraid if you get angry. Because sometimes on a call, I'll be like, I'm angry for you.
Yes, yeah, especially if they were mistreated.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm like, aren't you angry? And they're like, yeah, actually, now that you say it, I'm angry. And I'm like, good, because I'm angry for you.
Right. Or the entire call, they're saying, and then my ex did this, and then they did that. And so you can hear the frustration in the voice. And then you ask, are you angry? Well, you know, they were nice to me after all. It's like, no, you're clearly angry. You know, it's okay to be angry.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough to feel like I'm angry at somebody, but it's okay.
Especially when you want them back.
Yeah, that's true. Doesn't seem to jive, right?
Yeah.
All right, here's another big one. Bargaining. Bargaining is when you're constantly kind of replaying it. If I had only done this, if I had not done that one thing, if I had only said this one thing, if I had only proposed when they had mentioned it, even though I wasn't ready at the time, had I only done it, we'd be together right now. It's constantly going back to those what ifs. And I was like that with one of my breakups, bad. I was constantly looking at the what ifs and playing out all these different scenarios. Had I done this, had I done that different, we'd still be together. And you can get obsessed with it.
Oh, yeah.
And stuck on just, oh my gosh, you're just constantly going to think about all these scenarios. Had you done this one thing different, you'd still be with them.
Right. And this is normally the stage that we see people begging and pleading for their ex back. So you might be saying, I promise I'm going to love you forever. I'm never going to hurt you. All of these things. You might be making big promises in the stage of bargaining and really overpromising to yourself, not being realistic about where you currently are at.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one is sadness or depression. I think everybody feels that.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And you can get stuck on this stage. You feel like there's no hope, you don't have any motivation, and you kind of just feel like they're never going to come back, it's never going to get better, and it's just devastating.
This is normally a place where you feel very powerless in the breakup. It can be one of the least motivating stages too, where you kind of feel like, what's the point here? You might be telling yourself things like, I'm never going to find love. We tend to personalize the breakup a lot during this stage too, and come up with these faulty beliefs about ourselves of nobody's going to love me as much as they did, or I'm never going to be able to recover from this. I'm never going to be able to move on.
I'm never going to find someone like that person.
Yeah, so this is a tough stage because this is really diving into what the breakup meant for you. And it can be tough to get through because when we start telling ourselves these things and start believing them, it's hard to believe the opposite. Depression and sadness ends up being very cyclical. We have these thoughts, it makes us feel a certain type of way. We tend to isolate more. We tend to have less experiences that make us feel good and give us hope. And the cycle just repeats. So
does it ever get better?
It does get better, though. It does.
When?
Not for another 3 years.
Ah.
I'm joking. It does.
5 years.
For some, It's tough. It's tough. But there is hope. This is a stage just like the other stages. Sometimes you do have to sink into the feelings of sadness and allow them to just pass through you. One thing that I liked that Margaret used to say was, it's okay to feel sorry for yourself. She used to make fun of people who would say, don't feel sorry for yourself, get up and get moving. She would say, no, it's okay to feel sorry for yourself every now and again. It's another way that your body is recognizing what's happening, processing things, making sense of the world. Something sad happened. You're naturally going to be sad.
Yeah.
So it's a very important part. And if you are able to feel that full range of feelings and have gone through maybe some of these steps, have worked on yourself, being able to process the relationship itself, the very last step is acceptance. And this is a very interesting one because for a lot of people, they have this idea that acceptance means accepting that your ex is never coming back, that your ex is gone forever, that they don't want anything to do with you, that you just have to move on. So even the idea of acceptance can be really scary. And we talk about this quite a lot on the channel too, that some of you are afraid to heal from the breakup because that would mean actually letting go of that connection.
Yep.
But acceptance to me does not mean that at all. Acceptance to me is coming to terms with the breakup, being able to acknowledge what happened, being able to take ownership and responsibility for mistakes that you might have made, going back and reflecting, really taking the time to understand what happened and understand how your ex came to that decision. But it might include still being open to a relationship with them once you're in a more centered place.
Yep.
Sometimes we might think in terms of all or nothing. I need to be completely over the breakup and forget about them, block them, completely remove them from my life. In certain cases, maybe that might work for you. But for other people, you might come to a place where you realize, okay, this is not happening for me right now. I still think that this is a really great person. This is somebody who I could see a future with even still, but I'm not going to close off all my options just yet. And be okay with that. Not have that consume you or not be so tied to an outcome.
Yep. It's interesting when you think about it. Denial and acceptance are like the exact opposite things.
Yeah. And they're at the beginning and the end of the stages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Denying that it's even going on to coming to terms with it. It's interesting.
It is. And acceptance is also that working on yourself piece, going to therapy, talking through things, fixing these reoccurring themes. That's saying, I recognize that this is an issue. I'm not going to, close my eyes to this anymore. Acceptance is also having standards. Acceptance isn't something that's careless. Acceptance is not, I'm going to take my ex back under any circumstances for whatever reason. Acceptance is, okay, I recognize the things that went wrong. My ex also has to work on certain things in order for this relationship to work. That is acceptance, having standards, being able to grow.
Yeah. And maybe part of acceptance is this situation may not go the way that I want it to go, but I'm just going to find a way to get okay with it again and be okay. So it's just important for you to remember that all these stages are not linear. Sometimes people will skip a stage. Sometimes you might be stuck in a certain area. You might go through one stage and then go back. It's okay. It's not going to be the same for everybody. So just understand that it's a process. And the more you work at it and work through it, the better off you're going to be in the long run. Right?
Exactly, yep.
All right. So hopefully this one has been helpful to you. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. And of course, Coach Victoria is available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you're ready to talk.
Just click on her name at the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.